On to at 10, how you put your baby to bed at night is extremely important. That's because unsafe sleeping is the leading cause of death for children under the age of 1 each year. South Carolina loses 80 babies from that cause.
Yeah, that is 3 kindergarten classes of children dying, but most of those deaths, they are preventable. Fox Carolina's Pricco talked to an upstate mom who knows the pain all too well.
29 babies have died from unsafe sleep complications in the upstate in the last year. Greenville, Spartanburg, and Anderson counties with the highest number in the state. This hits home for an upstate mom whose infant daughter accidentally suffocated.
My mission is to, first of all, make sure nobody forgets her, but also to educate parents.
Catherine Martin of Taylor's dropped her daughter off at daycare on a chilly February morning. She didn't know it would be the last time she saw her baby alive.
No one should have to go through and be able to live life the way we do. I'll never get my daughter back.
The coroner's office found Kelly Wren in a bassinet, blankets and stuffed animals surrounding her. She was just 3 months old.
I am so passionate about this is because I've lived this life. It's been 8.5 years since Kelly Wren was killed in her childcare center, and it was just pure neglect. My life has never been the same.
The American Academy of Pediatrics says babies should only sleep on a flat surface without blankets, toys, or pillows.
They could get caught up against the side and roll over onto the top of it and not have a good, area of breath. So we still want to really advocate making sure that babies going to sleep alone with nothing in their crib. They're always on their back and they're on a firm sleep surface.
The other warning is about co-sleeping.
I would say that the biggest thing that we're seeing in our state alone is just trying to advocate for room sharing versus bed sharing. So we're just seeing a really big increase in babies sharing the same sleep space as the parent, a caregiver, or even another child.
Bridget Watson with Safe Kids Upstate says a baby is 67 times higher risk for death when sleeping with another person. Parents should be in the room until 6 months, but not the same bed. Another change to AAP guidelines, parents should not use sitting devices like car seats, strollers, swings, and infant carriers for routine sleep, particularly for infants younger than 4 months old. Brooklyn Cromer, Fox Carolina News.
Now, there is no device that can really reduce the risk of sleep-related deaths. Safe Kids Upstate says some products claim to help you monitor your baby's heart rate, but they can provide a false sense of security. You can head to our website at foxcarolina.com. We have more advice from those experts. We have a whole page committed to that information.
On to at 10.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to November's Cribs for Kids 25th Anniversary Safe Sleep Champion webinar. My name is Devon George. I'm the program officer here at Cribs for Kids. My colleagues, Kelly James and Andrea Wilson, are here as well, running the show behind the scenes for the next hour. For those joining live, as you log in, you'll see everyone's mics are muted, your cameras are off. So depending upon what time zone you're in, you can relax with your lunch, your mid-morning snack, or your morning coffee. Before we talk with today's Safe Sleep Champions, here's a quick overview on what we've been doing here all year. Today's November session is the 10th in our series of free monthly webinars marking Cribs for Kids' 25th anniversary across 2023. Each month throughout this year, around the 25th of the month, depending upon where the date falls or when a holiday might be, we've talked with Safe Sleep Champions about the work they do to prevent infant deaths and injuries from unsafe sleep. Like today's, these webinars are live, but they're recorded. That means you can visit our website to watch earlier webinars yourself or share them with like-minded colleagues. You'll also know that today's is live for sure because we are actually prepping for our 25th anniversary party. You might hear lots of the banging as we're setting up tables and hanging pictures and things. They are live. So the 25th anniversary page of our site is where you will find all of the information on our year-long webinar series. The past 9 sessions are available to watch and share, and it's also where you'll be able to register for December's webinar, our last one for our 25th year, as we wrap up today's discussion. So you just go to cribsforkids.org, click on the About menu, and you'll see our 25th anniversary link. And once you're there, you can scroll through the webinar library. Thanks to our Safe Sleep Champion guests, we have covered lots of ground. We've talked with experts in infant products, research, community health education, support for parents and caregivers, and first responders. We even had Mike Goodstein host an expert roundtable talking to the authors of the AAP's updated 2022 recommendations for reducing infant deaths in the sleep environment. So check those out yourself, share with others, register for the December 18th year-end webinar. And one more thing before we get started, you'll see both chat and Q&A are available. Kelly and Andrew are keeping an eye on those for the next hour. Chat is for comments if you're saying hello or want to alert us to anything. Q&A is for questions for our guests. If you have questions, we do suggest you wait until the end of the hour, near as we find that most of our questions are answered during the discussion. But before we wrap up, we'll invite you to send your questions via that Q&A. And if time permits, which typically it hasn't, but don't worry, we have an answer, we will answer them live. If not, we stay connected to the meeting after the webinar recording ends and answer them with you directly. Okay. So let's get started. We opened today's webinar with a very somber video of Catherine Martin talking with a reporter in her community about the death of her daughter, Kelly Ryn Martin. In 2023, Kelly Ryn, 3 months old, died at an in-home childcare center due to suffocation because of unsafe sleep. There are far too many parents and families year after year that face this unimaginable loss. We lose 35 infants each year in sleep-related infant deaths. Number one reason we lose our babies. Statistics also show that 20% of these preventable deaths occur within childcare settings or when baby is being cared for by someone else. It is a Google search that brings up way too many news stories impacting too many people across their lifetimes. So we're here today to talk about that tragic 20%, that's 700 annual infant deaths. How can we ensure care providers follow safe sleep? How can we help families have safe sleep conversations and steps we can each take in this regard? To share their experience, expertise, and guidance, we welcome Shayna Raphael and Ryan Pricco. Shayna may be familiar to lots of people on the webinar today, thanks to the work she does each day in memory of her daughter, Claire, through the Claire Bear Foundation. Shayna's incredible social media presence is really so great in support of infant safe sleep, connecting with families across parenting styles and communities on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook with her fabulous videos. That's how many of you may recognize her. In 2015, Shayna's almost 11-month-old daughter, Claire, was put in an unsafe sleep environment for a nap at her in-home childcare. Claire never woke up. Thrust into the world of childcare, of child loss, infant safety, and safe sleep, Shayna and her husband, Justin, founded the Claire Bear Foundation. Through this organization, they provide support, education, and advocacy for infant safe sleep. The Claire Bear Foundation does so much, provides cribettes to those in need, promotes awareness for medical personnel, offers safe sleep education and support through its website and social media presence. While advocating for legislation around childcare negligence in her home state of Washington, Shayna and Justin have also traveled to Washington, D.C. with Childcare Aware of America, speaking to national lawmakers about the importance of access for all families to high quality, affordable, and safe childcare. I'm lucky enough to work with Shayna on ASTM committees related to infant sleep products and the AAP's National Collaborative for Safe Infant Sleep, and you all are lucky enough to hear her talk today. We also welcome Ryan Pricco. Ryan is the Director of Policy and Advocacy for Childcare Aware Washington. In this role, Ryan coordinates the advocacy efforts for childcare aware across the state, providing an effective voice for children, families, and caregivers from the state capital of Olympia to the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. So when the legislature is not in session, Ryan focuses on grassroots mobilization and system messaging, representing childcare aware at key meetings with state-level partners, policy development and implementation, constituent engagement, and strategic relationships. We are grateful to have his expertise today. Okay, you guys, we're just going to start chatting away. I actually have, for the first time ever, like little notes and a pen, because I'm pretty sure you guys are going to say things that I'm going to want to follow up with. So Shayna, hello and welcome. As you know, I am just humbled with every single conversation I have with a lost parent, especially parents like you, when that unimaginable loss just changes the direction of your lives as you advocate for safe sleep, promoting education and support. So really just no other families have to carry the weight of that grief. So Shayna's going to talk with us about childcare and infant safe sleep. But to get there though, Shayna, I want to give you the space to tell us about your baby girl and her passing.
Thanks, Devon. So this is my Claire Whitten Raphael, and Claire was 10 months and 3 weeks old. She was just a little spitfire and very well loved by me, her dad, and her big sister. On April 24th, 2015 was my 31st birthday, and I'd taken the day off of work to spend some time with Claire's big sister, Lily. And we took Claire to her in-home childcare provider, which we always did. Her big sister went to this childcare for her first year of life, and Claire was going there for about 5 more weeks till we transitioned her to the childcare center that her big sister was going to. About halfway through the day, I started to get phone calls from both my mom and my husband. And as strange as it sounds, if my husband calls me during the workday, it's alarming. I know something important is happening. And so I answered the phone, and he just told me that I needed to get to the hospital, that my mom had called him and Claire had been brought in non-responsive, and I didn't have any other information than that. So off my oldest and I went on Friday, rush hour traffic, trying to get to the hospital, not knowing what I was walking into. And when I got there, that's when I found out that Claire was gone. We didn't really have answers as to what had happened at that time. We had no clue what could have happened. At almost 11 months old, you really think you're kind of out of that range of, oh, something could happen, especially a sleep-related death. But there is a reason those recommendations go up through 1 year of age. And we talked to the doctor that night. He too wasn't sure what had happened. We were and are incredibly thankful for that doctor. The doctor who worked on Claire happened to be the director of the emergency department. And I and my family fully believe that if there was any chance of Claire to survive, he gave her that chance. We found out after the fact that Claire had not been being put down in her portable crib that we had seen and been shown to by her childcare provider, and that when she turned around 7 months old, they had started putting her to nap on their adult bed, despite being able to clearly define safe sleep recommendations to the police, to CPS. They decided on their own that they thought she was strong enough to be fine on an adult bed. And the day that Claire died, they put her down on her back. She rolled onto her side. Because it's an adult mattress and not firm like a crib mattress, it created a little air pocket with her shoulder. And when her head kind of fell down towards her shoulder, with that air pocket, she kept rebreathing in the same air over and over again, and she asphyxiated and never woke up. It is a horrific experience, and for a while, I didn't talk about it publicly. I felt like her privacy was the one last thing that I could do to kind of protect her. And then I slowly understood that, hey, sharing Claire's story could very well save other people from losing their Claire. And so here we are 8.5 years later, still remembering her and missing her like we did the day she was gone.
Thank you. I'm sorry. You know, I've heard your story many times. I wasn't prepared. Again, I think I'll be all right this time. I don't know how you keep doing it, but thank you for that. So then how did the Claire Bear Foundation come to fruition?
Well, we really struggled unfortunately, with the police department. When Claire died, one of the detectives, the lead detective in particular, with kind of just this writing off of, well, you know, babies die all the time. I had a captain in the police department tell me that if it was his child, he would just think it was part of God's plan. And it became clear that we weren't really going to be able to get the kind of justice and answers we wanted. My husband is actually the one who reported Claire's death to CPS, the licensing part of it, 8 weeks after Claire died, when we found out that it hadn't been reported at all. And with all that lobbying and kind of frustration with the police department, we really decided that the only way we could get justice for Claire was through the civil system. So we filed a wrongful death lawsuit. And while we were glad we were able to get justice that way, there's nothing that feels good about receiving money when your child has died. That wasn't the reason that we did it. And so we really kind of at a loss of what to do with the funds. So we put some money aside for her big sister's college fund. And then the other money we decided should go to the hospital that tried to save her. And at the direction that Dr. Walkley, who was the doctor that was so kind, talked to me many times after Claire died to re-walk me through what happened that day. So we sent the money to Mary Bridge Children's Hospital at the direction that Dr. Walkley should decide where it should be used. And he spent about a year thinking of it and decided that simulation training room would be the absolute best use. He felt that the medical team that worked on Claire that day was so fresh because they had all just been kind of retrained on CPR and resuscitation, and that he wanted to make sure that every family had that same chance that we had. So now there is a Claire Raphael training room in the hospital that has these high-tech simulation mannequins that are infant and child sized, and you can work on intubation, all sorts of different things, and it gives real-time feedback. Which felt wonderful just to see Claire's name on the wall and people talking about her. We thought, hey, we want to do more of this. So we started, which we still continue, an annual scholarship. And it's actually at the high school that my mom was principal at the time. That was the only school that Claire ever spent any time at. We used to go all the time. I was a teacher at the time, and we'd go visit my mom. So we do the Claire Whitten Raphael scholarship there each year. And we would take part in fundraisers for the hospital. There's a Center for Grieving Children that we took advantage of for our oldest sister for the year after Claire died. And we really just thought, hey, this is great. And we're able to keep Claire's memory alive this way. And that's really how the foundation started. And we're really happy that it's been able to continue.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So here's a photo of the training room, right? And the work you do, as you said, is so multifaceted. So before we move to the childcare specifically, we talked a little bit about your continued work with the hospital, but anything else you want to share? And of course, your social media.
Yeah, so we've been able to continue to work with the hospital. We continue to fund the training room. Right now, the hospital's in one building with the regular hospital, and they just broke ground last year and are building a standalone children's hospital. So that simulation room is going to move, and they're hoping to have it be a lot bigger. So we're having our first ever auction and gala this year to help support and fund that training room, as well as the sleep spaces that we're able to provide for families at the national level. And social media has been a huge piece of it. It started out during COVID, like so many others, decided, hey, I'm going to make a TikTok account. And I did. And I just happened to follow one of the trends and post a picture of Claire, and people started asking questions. Then I answered it and had no idea that there would kind of be this following. So I create lots of safe sleep videos. I've uploaded many to the website that you're going through now that just take down the AAP recommendations and put them in videos that I feel like are really accessible and easy to understand, rather than having to go through an entire report. Everything in there is evidence-based, not my opinion. Just kind of taking bits and pieces of those recommendations. And so we have many on our website, lots on TikTok, where I'm able to answer questions. We've provided more sleep spaces, I think, from the work on TikTok than any place else. And then we put all those videos as well on Instagram and Facebook. And the amount of people we've been able to reach is phenomenal, including families that are currently bed sharing and want information and what they feel like might be a more judgment-free zone. And so I'm able to talk to people and meet them where they're at and have these conversations. And it's been extremely rewarding and helpful.
Yeah, it's really great. As you see, these are the pages going through. So if you don't have a TikTok account, you can still access all of this great information right on your website. And as you're scrolling, as we continue to kind of have this scroll, you can see all of the different topics to talk about infant safe sleep and other infant safety issues. So it's really, I just love it. And as you said, it's so accessible, it's so shareable, right? So if you have a friend who had a baby and you see something that you think isn't great that they're doing, you can be like, hey, I wanted to share this with you, right? Here's some information you might not know. So it's also a nice way to share information, not just for you to share with families, but also for other people to share with their loved ones as well. So tell me then, let's move on to childcare. What role does the Claire Bear Foundation play in connecting with childcare providers and parents?
Yeah, so understandably, I get a lot of questions about childcare. And with that, we are really fortunate and work to try and connect everyone with their state's resources, particularly with Childcare Aware of America. You can go to their website and families can access by state their state's information, and it'll take you to their resource and referral agencies, childcare licensing laws, how to report any concerns. It's just a font of knowledge and information. In Washington State, we're fortunate that our resource and referral agency is Childcare Aware of Washington. They have a resource called Childcare Check, where you can search for childcare. You can see if there are any past infractions, find information to see if they're in some of the early achiever programs, which are additional work that childcare providers do in Washington State to kind of have childcare of excellence almost. I'm sure Ryan can describe it better. So we work really hard to provide them with knowledge, because knowledge is power, and how to kind of navigate a system that's can be pretty overwhelming. I did not know much about it before Claire died, as embarrassing as that is. And there are so many great resources out there.
So your collaboration with Childcare Aware, let's talk with Ryan. We've got him right here about Childcare Aware. So Ryan, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. So our focus is on infant safe sleep in childcare today, but let's start with an overview of the breadth of work that Childcare Aware does, federal, state, local level. There is a great value in being sure that anybody who's watching this knows what a resource your agency is.
Yeah, thank you. I'm honored to be here, and I'm always humbled to work alongside Shayna and Justin around this critical issue, so I appreciate the time. Childcare Aware doesn't provide childcare directly. A lot of people get confused by that. What we do is a host of things to try to strengthen the childcare system, which, to be honest, is a system that's been in crisis for decades now, needs a lot more support, and we try as best we can to kind of fill those gaps. Childcare Aware of America is our national affiliate, and a lot of their work is focused on connecting families and connecting providers with information and resources through the affiliates that we have throughout the country. Childcare Aware has a program serving every zip code in this country now. That wasn't the case when I first started with this nonprofit, but we're everywhere now, and we offer support to families and communities anywhere in the country. And they also do a lot of work on the national level to advocate for better policies, more regulation, more licensing policies to be put in place where we have gaps, as well as invest more resources into the system so that we see less instances like this play out and kids have more access to safe and healthy childcare. I think the one thing that we do consistently across the country that I really want to highlight today, and Shayna touched on it, is helping families find childcare and do so in a way where you actually can, feel some sense of safety about the programs that you're looking into. And the reason for that is we are connected to licensing databases in states, and we're connected to registered and certified programs as well. So and I just dropped the link in the chat, if you go to Childcare Aware of America's website, you can get connected to your local CCR&R affiliate. You can give them a call, or you can access their online database where available. And you can get a referral of programs that are licensed and monitored. And you can feel safe that these are programs that have had to implement safe practices because they have a third party coming in and monitoring them. You can also then talk to a trained counselor about what that enforcement looks like. What rules do we have in place in my community? How is it enforced? How is it monitored? What do I need to know when I go to look for a program? and then you receive a list of programs that match your criteria. If you want to make sure that every program that you're looking at is licensed and monitored regularly, they can cater the list to that, in addition to giving you the type of care you want, the hours that you need, the location that you need, whatever it might be. So Childcare Aware was originally set up to help families find childcare, and that remains, our core function to this day.
Wow, so you said a couple things in there I want to follow up on. You said CCR&R. What is that?
Sorry, Childcare Resource and Referral.
Thank you.
It's the acronym we use for basically helping families find licensed childcare.
Okay, great. And then you said something else, and now I can't even remember what it was. Oh, you said they can talk to a person, like a live person?
Yes, yeah. Every childcare aware agency across the country is different, does different things, and is situated differently. But as far as I know, most, if not all of them, have actual live people that will answer the phone and give you a referral list and answer any questions that you have about those programs, about the system that you're navigating, and what rules are in place in your community.
That's great. That's great. So, and as you're talking about the work that Childcare Aware does, it encompasses all kinds of childcare, right? There's different sorts of childcare that family might use. So what are those, and what different legislation requirements might there be at the federal, state, or local level when it comes to specifically caring for infants under the age of 1, as we're kind of getting to this infant piece of it?
Yeah, there's lots of different forms of childcare out there. You have childcare centers, which are becoming kind of the predominant form of licensed care that families access. So these are, big buildings with classrooms and lots of staff inside that help take care of kids based off of age groups throughout the facility. You also have, as Shayna mentioned, in-home family childcare that we call it, where people are providing care for profit out of their homes. And then you have registered or certified programs. So programs that might not necessarily have to meet licensing standards, but are still go through some kind of registration or certification process and do receive support and monitoring. And a lot of our preschool programs that only operate part day and part year fall under that category. A lot of our before and after school age childcare programs kind of fall into that category, where they're not necessarily providing full-time, full-year childcare and might not have to get licensed, but still go through some kind of process where parents can feel some level of comfort knowing that their children are going to be well taken care of there. I guess the big takeaway that I would share with everyone here when it comes to federal or state laws is that it varies so greatly from state to state. Our federal government has some rules in place. They provide a lot of funding to states to support the child care system, and they have some rules attached to that money that say, you must set up a licensing structure. And they have some specific things that they mandate, like everyone that is providing licensed child care must have a background check, for example. However, a lot of flexibility is left to the states for how they follow through on those mandates. What programs they license and to what extent they monitor them is largely left up to the states, and that can vary greatly. A big example is family child care homes. Most states license those programs, some states don't. And that can be a huge gap in states where you don't see that. It doesn't mean that those providers are bad providers or doing unsafe things. It just means we can't verify what their routines are and what their protocols are because they don't follow under licensing. And so it's so critical for parents when they are looking for childcare to understand what the rules and enforcement mechanisms are in their community before they decide what program to take their kids to. And again, our childcare resource and referral agencies can help walk you through all of that and answer all those questions.
So as a parent, that's the first step I should take is to learn what I can expect of childcare in my state. And the best way to do that is
to contact your CCR&R agency. So the link that I provided in the chat can connect you with whatever that agency is. You give them a phone call, you tell them what questions you have, what kind of care you're looking for, what age group of child that you need to access care for, and they can walk you through all of those systems, answer any questions you have, and reassure you about what exactly you need to look for to make sure that you're accessing quality care.
That's great. So once I do that, I've contacted the CCR&R. Yeah. They provide me with a list of those that meet the requirements of my state, or they provide me background on what my state requirements are for infant care. What kind of questions should I be asking about infant safe sleep when I'm talking to a child care agency or in-home child care?
I just dropped a resource in the chat that actually gives you a resource from Childcare Aware of America that lists out a lot of questions that you can consider asking when you go to your childcare program. And I think that that's so essential because the CCR&R agency is going to give you a list of programs that match your high-level criteria for what you're looking for. But you need to go and tour these facilities and check them out before you enroll your child there to make sure it's the right place for your kid. And that's your opportunity to ask them these detailed questions about what their practices are, what their protocols are. There's, as I said, the CCR&R agency can give you kind of the minimum licensing standards that are in place for the programs in your community, but programs often go beyond that. And programs meet those standards in different ways. And when you go and tour that facility, that's a chance for you to ask them, what kind of safe sleep practices is your staff trained up on? What kind of monitoring system do you have in place? In Washington, we have licensing rules that require an adult to actually be supervising all children while they sleep at all times. That's not necessarily the case in most states. But programs can choose to do that on their own. And so those are the kind of questions that you need to ask when you go check out these facilities to make sure that not only are they meeting these minimum licensing standards, but that they're doing everything they can to ensure that your child is safe and receives quality care while they're there.
And Shayna had referenced it, and I think you've referenced it, and we have some of your website scrolling there because Childcare Aware provides some tools for this, right? You've got checklists that kind of provide a guide for those conversations.
Correct. Yeah. So we have a checklist of things that you can ask, and there's a lot of options there. And so I think it's important for you to review that list before you tour programs and identify the things that are really important to you. And I'll also just say, don't be afraid to ask these questions. Childcare programs are used to answering these questions. These are people, in my experience, who are incredibly passionate about caring for kids and especially caring for babies and giving them everything they need to get off to a great start in life. And they want to promote that. They want to talk about that. They want to market that to potential customers to show, this is what we do. We're proud of what we do here. And they're usually eager to explain it in great detail. If you go to a program and they're not giving you that detail, they're not giving you that insight, and they don't seem to be motivated to readily share that information, or I'd also add, they're not demonstrating that they have routines and protocols in place to make sure that there's never an off day, that they never skip a step, that they never, do some shortcuts or whatever and kind of generally try to do the right thing. I think it's really important to ask, what daily routines and protocols do you have in place to ensure that these different outcomes are met every day for every child in your program?
And I know we didn't talk about this earlier, but so I apologize if I'm going a little bit off of some of the things we said we'd talk about. But if, say, I'm deciding that I want to have an in-home childcare, for example, and my state, I need to go as a provider to go find out what my state regulations are, I can go to your site and learn that just as well, right?
Yes, we can definitely answer some initial questions for you. We don't do licensing ourselves. And so ultimately, if you make that connection with us, what we're going to do is connect you with whatever agency in the state does do licensing. They typically have orientations that they make available where you can come and learn about all the things you'd have to have in place to get a childcare program up and running, and then tell you what that monitoring and enforcement would look like throughout the extent of you operating the business.
And even if my state doesn't have some requirements that are as great as, say, or as have as much teeth to them as, say, they do in Washington, could I find out what kind of the gold standard is for a state and be like, I'm going to follow that, even though my state only requires this, I want to follow this. Is there kind of a gold standard to follow?
Yeah, and that's where a child care resource and referral agency, our provider-facing services can really come in. So Shayna mentioned that here in Childcare Aware of Washington, we have a contract with the state to provide support to providers who participate in our Early Achievers program. Early Achievers is our quality rating and improvement system. It's a voluntary system that the vast majority of our licensed programs are now a part of here in our state. And almost every state has its own version of a quality rating and improvement system. And this system is all geared towards making, programs accessing the training, the scholarships, the quality improvement services that they need in order to provide as good of standard as they can with the resources that they're given. And then there's some accountability introduced in those systems too. That's where the rating part, the R part, comes from, where then a third party actually comes in, somewhat regularly, probably like every few years, and monitors the entire practice from top to bottom, and actually assigns a rating to the program. It's usually like a 5-star system. And so when you call a CCR&R agency, if they have a QRIS system in their state, another key question for them is, I want to be in a program that's licensed and is participating in QRIS. And they can give you a list of programs that match that criteria. And then you can see the rating, like, oh, this program down the street from my work is actually a 4-star program. And then you can go look into that program and realize to reach a 4-star level, here's all the things, all the metrics that they met. In our state, you can actually look at individual rating information and see what things that program scored really well on and what things they didn't score as well on, and really give you like comprehensive information about what childcare looks like in that program before you go to tour it and ultimately enroll your child. So, I feel repetitive, but contact your CCR&R, ask them all the questions that you have, ask them about QRIS, ask them about licensing, get that full picture before you go in and enroll your child anywhere.
Yeah, that's really great. No, please. My kids are so old. I was like the yellow pages, right? And going through and seeing them. So what a fabulous resource Childcare Aware provides for that. So thank you. But so Shayna, right? We talked about the state links, the checklist. That's all great. And Ryan talked about when you go, this is your chance to ask questions and look around. So I'm a parent who's touring a childcare center, either in home or a big childcare facility. And I'm there. What positive things would I be looking for regarding safe sleep? Or there red flags that I might just kind of eyeball and be like, hey, hang on, that might help to guide some conversation?
Yeah, well, first of all, if you have a childcare that is willing to let you come and visit during operating hours, that is phenomenal, because then you might see some things in action in terms of where babies are sleeping and what the practices are. Definitely, we want to look for safe sleep spaces. We're avoiding things like drop side cribs, anything that has items in a sleep space. So we don't want blankets, loveys, none of that in there. If you look around and you're seeing things like bouncers or swings, which aren't illegal to have and they are safe for awake time, that's an opportunity to ask some open-ended questions of, hey, when are these products used? How are they used? I think that you're going to come in empowered, right? Because we've already gone to our resource and referral agency. We've reviewed and we know what safe sleep policies are and what best practices are. So now we're going to ask open-ended questions to that provider that gives us a chance to really see what they have to say about safe sleep and if it aligns with what the practices are. I think another great thing to ask is if they allow drop-ins during the day, or if you can only pick up your child at a very specific time. I have to tell you, one of my biggest regrets ever is not dropping in. I think so many times had I done that, I would have seen that Claire wasn't where we thought she was. And it also would be a big red flag to me if I had a childcare that said, no, you can't just stop in. So maybe one day you just pop in and pick up your kiddo early, just so you can see what's going on. And there are so many amazing childcare providers out there, and 99.9% of the time, they're not going to have any issue with that. Things were different during COVID, which I completely understand because they had lots of other safety things in place. But being able to drop in and access your child whenever you want to access your child is very important. And also, if you do see something that isn't safest or doesn't align well with what you know are best practices for childcare, it's okay to say something. Ryan mentioned this childcare crisis, and it is so real. Childcare can be hard to find. It's difficult to find. And so we almost feel like we're beholden or at the will of childcare providers, because then what happens if we kind of cause a stink or rock the boat? Are we not going to have childcare? But be empowered, be confident, realize that your child's safety is of the utmost importance, and it's okay to ask those questions. And childcare providers, quality childcare providers, which there are so many of, aren't going to even flinch when you ask those questions, because they expect them to come and they're ready and prepared with the answers that you have.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I was very lucky. Both my boys were childcare boys. People will hear me say, I swear, if it weren't for their childcare, they still wouldn't be potty trained. They'd be, so and they're old, but they really they would have been fine. But and we were very lucky too, because we had access to great childcare. My childcare was near my work, so I would go sometimes and go to lunch with him, and then it became disruptive. But you're right. And I do want to say this, that 99.9, right? The people who open a childcare or people who work in childcare are doing that because they love children and they want children to be safe. So if you do see something like a blanket in the pack and play, or a bunch of our cribette is over here, so I'm looking, a bunch of loveys in there, or toys, or two babies in there, that maybe they don't know, right? From what Ryan is saying, you could be in an in-home, and if there aren't great requirements in that state, maybe somebody who is filling in that day doesn't know. So when you go to pick up and you look and you're like, hey, did you know? Hopefully that is met with an open heart, and, oh, I didn't know, or gee, it's usually not like that, or no baby was in there, kind of thing. And I do see it on social media, what you say, Shayna, people feel beholden, right? They're worried. And you see on some of the social media pages that I saw a baby sleeping in a car seat in the childcare. Should I say something? And of course, everybody is like, yes, you have to say something. Why would you not say something? Well, the reason I might not say something is that is the only place my baby can go that's within, 20 miles of where I live and work. And why, and how do I approach that without alienating that caregiver? It is a fine line, but again, they're there to keep babies safe, and may not know, or may be making bad decisions. So I think you're right. They need to feel empowered through education to have that conversation, right? Yeah. So thank you so much for that, and thank you for reminding that 99% of the time, they're doing a good job. So Ryan, if we do see an ongoing violation, so with something a little different than that introductory conversation, or if I see something and it's fixed, if I see something that I am concerned that it's a violation, what should a parent do?
Well, it just, to kind of reinforce what you're just saying, first talk to the provider. Try to address it immediately. I think one of the key strengths that our childcare system has is that all of the parents whose kids are in those programs, they're paying customers. They have skin in the game. And so it's a lot different than when you want to talk to your K-12 teacher, right, about things that are going on in a school, and hoping that can get changed. You can solve a lot of problems by just saying, hey, I see this happening in the program. I'm worried about it. I think there's a better way to do this. And in most cases, the provider is going to be responsive. If they're not, then that should be a red flag that maybe you're not in the right place. If that continues, then you should absolutely file a complaint with your state's licensing agency. If you don't know what that agency is, contact your CCR&R, and they can connect you with that agency. Every state has some kind of portal, some kind of 1-800 number that you can call. You can do it anonymously if you want to. And then the licensing agency, has a reason to go check it out and see if something's going wrong. And if the violation is bad enough and they conclude that it is after an investigation, then they can take action against the program, including shutting them down from being able to provide care anymore. That all happens as long as you're utilizing a licensed childcare program. If you're using a program that doesn't fall under licensing, there's not a lot of recourse that you can do. There's no agency that's going to go out and investigate that home or investigate that facility that's operating outside of the rules. And that's why it's so important to make sure that you look for licensed programs that are monitored, so that there is accountability there. You can have some assurances that safe practices are implemented. And if something goes wrong, you have something you can turn to in order to take action and either remedy the situation or make sure that situation doesn't happen to any other kids going forward if you feel that you need to remove your child from that program.
Yeah, Yeah, because that conversation that we're having today is one that's in an ideal world, right? Where mom and dad or parents have an option to choose a care provider, where budget isn't a concern. There is no waiting list. The waiting list is crazy, right? Or that you can visit, that you can make a choice, and that's not always the case. So, to both of you, do you have any recommendations for families on how to address infant safe sleep when there's not a state requirement, or when you are using something that isn't part of a license because you don't have that choice, how parents can ensure safe sleep is followed? Either one of
I
you. Step on each other.
well, I'll just jump in real quick because I'm sure Shayna actually has some better advice here. But again, talk to your provider before you enroll while you're touring about what their safe sleep practices are. Do they have enough staff to make sure that every child is being watched and supervised while they're sleeping? Are they using the appropriate cribs? Are they trained on what safe sleep practices are? And how do they make sure that they're followed every day? And I love what Shayna just said. Drop in and observe and make sure that they're actually executing what they say, that is their ideal and their practices in programs. Because again, we are suffering through a childcare crisis that often results in understaffing of programs. And then programs have to get creative and innovative on how they still are following through on best practices. And so there's what providers say, and then there's what they actually do. And you need to hear from them what their intent is, and then you need to go watch and observe them to make sure that they're following through on it.
Yeah, that is tough to do, right? Because the reason they're in childcare is because I have work and I'm trying to balance. So that is tough to do. So yeah, maybe if there are those few hours when maybe you can pop in early or go have lunch and go take a look and peek in. But how about you, Shayna? What is your experience and how to ensure that?
Definitely reiterating a lot of what Ryan said about having the conversations. Again, having that knowledge piece ahead of time when you're going in. There are states like Washington State where even if you are running unlicensed care, you're still held to the same standard as a licensed provider when you're taking care of children. So you would have the same repercussions as a provider would if a child were injured and you weren't following those licensing practices. So even though there might be some unlicensed care, especially we see in more rural areas, they're still very capable of following those safe sleep recommendations. And I am always a big proponent of memorializing conversations you have. So whether that be a text message or an email after you have the conversation about safe sleep, just sending a quick follow up. Hey, I really appreciated our conversation about sleep practices. Give a small summary. And then you're kind of letting them know that you mean business on that you had the conversation, you're following up and confirming what happened, and that agreement is kind of in writing now.
Oh, that's great. That's a great recommendation. And what about babysitters or emergency childcare, right? If we have a friend or a family who's watching baby regularly or in a pinch, if somebody is watching baby for us, how should parents address safe sleep in that instance? Is there an easy way to have that conversation?
Yeah, I think that just having something typed out and ready to go, even if you just have one laminated copy that you take with you to drop off with your child, or if they're coming to your home of, hey, these are how we practice safe sleep with our children, and these are our expectations. Safe sleep can seem like it's overwhelming, especially when we have all these different products on the market and there's so many conversations about safe sleep, but really the basics of safe sleep are extremely simple. So if we are just having those readily accessible to the person that's watching our child, even in a pinch, that's something that they can refer to pretty quickly.
Yeah, we have our door hanger that I love, but we talk about that as a kind of a transition of care piece because it's small enough you can put that right in the diaper bag. You can hang it on the doorknob where baby should be sharing your room with you, so that when somebody comes over, you can be like, hey, let's look at these. You can even circle, like, here are the ones we're really worried about on here, as you said, to get to the basics. So it's such an important topic. We're so lucky to have you both here, especially after the holiday. Thank you. So Ryan, is there one thing you want to be sure everyone who's listening knows or does to keep babies safe in childcare?
Yeah, we've talked a lot today about what to do with the system that we're given, that is inherently under-resourced. And I think that what we really want to do is everything we can to push our country in a direction where we actually realize that early education is the most important part of our education system. It's where our most vulnerable children are, and yet we don't fund it anywhere close to what we do for the rest of the education system, right? Like in K-12, we have resource officers and counselors and nurses at schools to make sure that kids are not only receiving education, but they're safe while they're there. Childcare programs don't have any resources like that near them. They have to rely on how much parents can pay out of pocket in order to do all their staffing and have all of these safe practices in place, and parents can't afford to cover all of those expenses. So until we get to a point where childcare providers are not making poverty wages, in Washington State here, childcare educators rank in the 3rd percentile of all occupational wages in our state. That's less than parking lot attendants and pet groomers. So we literally pay people more money to watch our pets and our cars than our babies right now. And that results in high turnover, which means you always have staff coming into programs that don't have that training and background and awareness of what these safe practices and quality care look like. They have to learn that on the job. And programs are continually dealing with that cycle of turnover. And so we need to approach childcare. We need to approach early education the way that we do the rest of our educational system, to make sure that every parent can afford to access childcare, and that every childcare program has the resources they need to pay their staff a living wage, which then enables them to require things like an education and qualifications and training and a background and everything that they need to know in order to not just provide quality care, but ensure that every child is looked after and is in a safe place while their parents are at work. This is absolutely something we can do. We fell 1 vote short in the Senate just a couple years ago of actually accomplishing a lot of these things. And so in addition to connecting with your CCR and our agency around how to navigate the system and get the questions that you need to access care, I would also talk to your CCR and our agency about how you can get involved in advocating for more resources to be put into childcare and be done so in a way that ensures we have qualified people looking after all of our kids, and every family can afford to take their child to a place where they know they're going to be nurtured and safe while they're at work.
So I'm sure Childcare Aware must provide some resource so that I can learn even how my representatives voted on that legislation that fell 1 vote short, so that I can put my time at the poll to good use as well for kids. Yes?
Yeah, if you go to Childcare Aware of America's website right now, they have real-time updates about everything that's being discussed in childcare. In Washington, our Senator Patty Murray is the nation's foremost champion for childcare. She's introduced the Childcare for Working Families Act that would not only ensure that expenses are capped for all families looking for childcare, so it's affordable for everyone, but that programs get the resources they need to ensure that we don't have high turnover, that we have qualified staff in every programs, and that every program can meet ratios, meet licensing standards, and ensure that kids are safe.
Wow, that is great info, right? It's from your own community and your choices that you're making for your own children, but how to have an impact statewide and nationwide. It's a good place you work for there, Ryan. Very good. Very good stuff. And Shayna, how about you? Anything that you want to be sure as we're leaving today that everyone listening knows to keep babies safe in childcare?
Yeah, I think so often stories like Claire's or Kelly Wren, who we heard about at the start of this. I'm friends with Catherine. That's actually how I first got connected with Childcare Aware of America. You hear stories like ours, and you may pause and say, oh, childcare is not a safe place to go to. But really listening to us, you're going to find out that we are fierce advocates for childcare. Claire has a little sister that she never got to meet, and she was in childcare, and I was so happy that she was taken care of and loved by her childcare provider. So even though you hear our stories, this isn't a caution away from putting your child in childcare. It's about empowerment, advocating for resources for childcare, and knowing what questions to ask so that you're making sure that your child is safe within childcare. And like Ryan spoke to early, or and you, that people are going into childcare because of the children. They're not going in there and making millions of dollars each year. And 99.9% of those childcare providers are going to be taking wonderful care of your children. So keep Claire in mind, but don't think of that as an obstacle or deterrent for you wanting to have your child in childcare.
It's a wonderful message. Thank you. Thank you both for being so generous with your time, your knowledge, your expertise. Shayna, we're so grateful that you and your husband found a way to turn your grief into incredible action to honor Claire. You guys are wonders. And Ryan, thank you for being a legislative advocate for children and families and sharing how you protect those babies in a child care setting. It's been a super meaningful conversation with me. I trust that that's come through, and I trust that it's been the same for everybody who's joined us or watched. So we do not have time, surprise. I actually went to a couple minutes over as I'm looking at the clock and the time that I have hashed here for questions via the live format. But please do feel free to put your question in the Q&A. Andrea and Kelly will be looking at that as the webinar closes. We will stay on the Zoom link with Shayna and Ryan so that we can ask those questions when the lullaby ends. So as we near the close of the hour, if you've watched before, we end each webinar with 3 things: call to action, opening the registration for our next webinar, and playing our lullaby, Just Baby. But before that, I want to introduce Cribs for Kids plans for 2024 Childcare Professional Initiative. Next year, we're going to launch a series of advanced infant safe sleep education modules designed for professional roles. The advanced modules are going to build on our Safe Sleep Ambassador, which anybody can take for free. So anybody who's caring for baby, you can go ahead and point them there. And so we'll take the Safe Sleep Ambassador and lay on a specialized education and support for those working directly with infants. The advanced modules are going to include those for childcare professionals, home visitors, child protective services, public safety professionals, NICU team members. Each advanced module then will include a link to other resources and support for that profession as it relates to infant safe sleep. We're super excited about the advanced module expansion to our Safe Sleep Ambassador training cornerstone, and we look forward to releasing these across 2024. So that's something coming up for next year. 2024, can you believe it? Okay, so back to our 3 items. I'm gonna have to click over here. Oh, sorry. Okay, first, the action item. We want you to visit Childcare Aware's website to learn about the childcare requirements for your state, particularly as they relate to infant safe sleep. You heard Ryan mention it. Go to childcareaware.org, link to your state. While you're there, look for the child care evaluation checklist, connect with your CCR&R, and I don't know if those letters are right, but the checklists, as I said, are a perfect complement for our door hanger, our 12-step door hanger that's available in our partner catalog is a great educational piece for transition of care. So next, so that's one is your action item. If you haven't already gone there, go do it right now. Next, registration for December's webinar scheduled for Monday, December 18th at noon Eastern. This is going to wrap up our year of free monthly webinars. The team from Safe Sleep Simulation, which has a super cool product, is going to join us to talk about their innovation in infant safe sleep education. And then I'll be joined by some of the Cribs for Kids team members to share insights from our champions across the year. I look forward to 2024. We have some new products. We'll announce some milestones. So mark your calendar, register, and join us as we cap off our 25th year. And okay, action item, Childcare Aware. Register for our next webinar. And finally, our lullaby. We close each webinar with Just Baby, a safe sleep lullaby. Like the Safe Sleep Ambassador and our video library content, and Claire Bear's Foundation video library content, or their video library content. It's available online at no cost. We have our song, our video, it's a music bed, the English and Spanish versions of our Safe Sleep Lullaby. It's all out there for free. So again, thank you to Shayna of the Claire Bear Foundation and Ryan from Childcare Aware. As always, thank you to those who join us live and those who are watching later. That time and commitment that you share with us is the only way we all make a difference. And you can always reach us at cribsforkids.org. Thanks so much.
Sleepy baby, sleeping safely in a little crib. Bassinet or play our naps. No pillows, blankets, no precious baby.